With all the work that goes into producing premium matcha tea, it's important for us to put in a little effort when it comes to tasting matcha. The farmer's skill and dedication is evident in each bowl of matcha they produce. You just need to know what to look for. In this video, we're going to learn how to taste matcha just like you'd learn how to taste a fine wine. This video is an excerpt from our book Matcha Masterclass, a 140-page guide on all things matcha. If you want to learn the history of matcha, the health benefits of matcha, how matcha is made, and more, you can get the full book for free when you sign up using the link below. Now let's get tasting. A sip of matcha only lasts for a fleeting moment, and there are so many things you need to look for, it becomes overwhelming. The first step when it comes to learning how to taste matcha like a pro is to break it down into its constituent parts. We are ultimately looking for 4 elements in a matcha: aroma, taste, texture, and finish. First, let's start with aroma. Aroma and flavor are often confused, especially with tea and wine. In fact, some languages use the word aroma to refer to the flavor of a tea, because this actually contributes more to the drinking experience than the flavor. We think of aroma as a smell, but it's actually more than that. The nose can actually smell tea as you drink it through a phenomenon known as retronasal olfaction. The nasal passage is connected to the mouth, and when you drink tea, you actually smell it in reverse. Through this process, you can pick up on a lot of the more refined notes of a matcha, like the vegetable, grassy, and fruity flavors. Pay attention to how intense these aromas are and how long they persist. Also, do they go in one direction consistently or do they deviate? So let's talk about the aroma notes. First, we have Ooika. The Ooika is a note almost unique to matcha, and it refers to the seaweedy or steamed vegetable flavors. This is a result of the long shading process and the enhanced levels of theanine, chlorophyll, and polyphenols, which combine to create an aroma unlike any other. A good example of this Ooika aroma is in the Chanoka silver matcha from Uji. Hika. Hika is another aroma that translates to smell of fire in Japanese. This is present in other teas, but you can also find it in matcha. This is where you get more of the roasted aroma like kinako or roasted soybean flour and toasted nuts. A good example of a matcha that has this Hika aroma is the Osada Okumidori matcha from Shizuoka. Floral. A lot of matchas also have a floral aroma. This is a bit more rare, but it adds a playful complexity to the matcha that keeps each sip interesting. A good example of this is the Sakamoto Sai matcha from Kagoshima. Fruity. Finally, matcha can also exemplify a fruity aroma. This does not mean that the matcha has been scented or sweetened. It's due to the complex cocktail of volatile compounds that are also found in various fruits. Our brain just perceives these compounds and associates it with fruits we are familiar with. Flavor. So flavor and aroma are easily confused, but flavor is what happens on the tongue. This sensation can be powerful, but it's not as refined as aroma. You can get basic signals from the matcha like sweetness, bitterness, acidity, etc. If you want an example of how aroma influences your perception of flavor, you can hold your nose when you drink matcha, or any other drink for that matter, and see how the taste changes. This stops the retronasal olfaction from taking place, and everything else is flavor, perceived by the mouth rather than the nose. So if you hold your nose while drinking matcha, you won't get the aromas, but you still might perceive these flavors. Umami. This is the legendary 5th flavor that translates to savory, and it's commonly used in Japanese dishes. An example of this is mushrooms, tomatoes, and dashi, foods that add a savory dimension. In tea, this savory characteristic comes from the amino acids, which are the basic building blocks for proteins. Sweet. While matcha isn't sweet like candy, it does produce a subtle sweetness that can be felt on the palate. This should feel smooth on the tongue and make you salivate. Bitter. While higher quality matchas tend to have very little bitterness, it's still something that people look for in a matcha. This is a sensation you feel on the back of the tongue, and it may produce a lingering aftertaste. Dry. Dryness is probably the easiest of flavors to pick up on. After drinking a matcha, does your mouth start to stick together? This may be a sign of dryness, which comes from the catechins. Sour or citrusy. Finally, a matcha may be a bit acidic, almost like a lemon. This may seem similar to dryness, but the result is actually the opposite. Acidity will cause your mouth to water, and it can work great in food pairings. Texture. This is how the matcha feels, and it encompasses both the mouthfeel and the weight or shape of the matcha. This is actually the best entry point for beginners, so try starting here if you're new to matcha. After you take your first sip of matcha, don't try to name the tasting notes, just describe how it feels. Does it make your mouth pucker like you ate a sour candy? That's astringency or dryness. Does it leave your mouth with a cooling sensation like peppermint? Or maybe it feels heavy, creamy, or thick. These are all descriptors that even beginners can pick up on, and it's helpful information when it comes to getting to know a matcha. Finish. This is another easy entry point for beginners, and it refers to what happens after the sip. Does the flavor of the matcha linger, or is the taste gone as soon as you finish it? Try to count how long the flavor stays in your mouth after you're done drinking. In rare cases, the finish can disappear and then return. In general, a longer finish is an indication of higher quality, and the returning finish is the highest praise of all. Structure. This is where it all gets a little bit meta, but structure is a term borrowed from the wine world, and it refers to the order in which the tasting notes come. Perhaps the initial flavors dissipate quickly, but the aftertaste lingers. Or maybe the matcha changes directions a few times before the aftertaste comes in. All of these can be noted when it comes to evaluating the structure of a matcha. The attack. This is the first impression of a wine or a matcha, and it's the very first thing you notice when you sip it. It could be the acidity or the dryness of the tea, which tends to develop later. Mid-palate. This is the real meat of the flavor, where the matcha starts to develop its own unique identity. The flavor will develop from the initial first impression in this step. Finish. Finally, the taste will begin to dissipate into a finish. Where do the flavors end up, and how long do they stick around? Sometimes they will evolve into a surprising direction, and this is key to note when assessing the finish of a matcha. If you want to practice your matcha tasting, the best way to get started is by getting a matcha sampler. We've put together an assortment of different matcha teas from all over Japan, and they all taste completely different. If you want a more hands-on tasting demonstration, we highly recommend you get a matcha sampler at neoteas.com. In the next episode, we're going to learn how to evaluate the quality of a matcha. But if you don't want to wait that long, you can get the full book for free when you sign up using the link below. Until then, we'll see you next time.